I realise that sometimes I'm prone to a spot of hyperbole, but I promise you, when I say that this season is possibly the greatest season I've ever had on FM since I started playing this game, I'm not mucking about. Now, normally at this point in the video, I've mentioned that there's a final or two going on over on stream right about now. Today, we're doing things a little bit different. Wait until a bit later in the video, and you will very much see why. The VODs of all the streams, of course, can be found on the second channel, linked in the description. They go out the day after every single stream. But for now, Season 18 of Building a Nation with MTK Budapest was supposed to be one of the slingshot. With us dropping all the way down to 7th place in the coefficient charts, we knew that this season we would have better teams in worse competitions and have a lower points dilution, which would give us a massive shot at potentially slingshotting our way back up to 5th where we were, or maybe even into the top 4 on the coefficient charts. But that is for later. For now, we talk transfers, because there have been some mammoth ins and outs this season. I think we've broken our transfer record in and out in the same season, possibly even multiple times. So let's get stuck in. First out was Lukas Rošipal, the Czech Republic international that we signed on a free transfer from Liverpool. Only lasted a single season at the club, but we managed to get £20 million from PSG for him. Free transfer, 1 year later, £20 million. I'm telling you, picking up players who are sort of 29, 30 that get released from their contracts at big sides, have them in for one season, and then try to flip them is a great way of making money when you're in a position like us. I swear by this style of play. It's working so well for us. But yeah, another 20 million for free. Another free transfer that moved on was Hernan Ramos, the 32-year-old Argentinian international. Got him for free, sold him to Celtic for £8 million. Just a nice little bit of profit to get us started with the window, just to wet our whistle of what was to come, because believe me, there were more to come. So let's jump into the transfer window. First out in the main window, of course, was Giannis Stelios to Newcastle on a transfer of £10 million. Another player that we picked up on a free transfer, got a few England caps for him, and, you know, just another £10 million for a player that wasn't really going to play for us. That was just more business. Next was a very big one. £35 million for Juan Jose Terranova, the 30-year-old Colombian. We figured that with the reinforcements we were bringing in at both right back and left back over the last few years, that it was probably the right time to sell Terranova, as despite him being a really solid player for us over, as you can see, nearly a decade, I just never felt that he offered enough in certain positions going forward and created enough assists and whatnot. So when Milan came in and said, hey, 35 million, I bit their bastard hand off. And then was an even bigger out. So you remember Ismail Giddy from a few seasons ago. We brought him in initially to be the replacement for one of our midfielders. However, he ended up going out on loan to Újpest for a little while because he couldn't get in our team. And he was doing a good job there, playing lots of matches for them in Europe and doing all kinds of business. But then he refused to go back out on loan, so we figured this season we'll bring him into our first team and he can sort of operate as a backup sort of. The fact that a player this good as a backup is scary, I realise, but he just would be. And then PSG offered me £60 million for him. And I thought, you know what? Maybe this was a transfer that perhaps we could have held off on a little bit, and we have been a little bit light in that position, but I still think getting 60 million was a good deal for us in many ways. And you know, the fact is he's worth loads at PSG. They always are. But still, it's a £40 million profit. And I say this because Tex-Mex has also left. The Brazilian wonder star, really. Frankly, he came in, had a poor time of it initially, and then turned his career around with us and was genuinely a gem in that period. But he was 31 years old, or I think he was going to be turning 31 years old. We knew that he still had plenty in the tank, but with that natural fitness of 12, we weren't sure how far he could go, and we didn't really want to dump another massive contract in, especially with him pretty much being kept out of the team last season by Sam Ingram. The last transfer, which actually took place in January, is going to need a little bit of explaining first, and that is the saga of Jose Luis Castillo. Monstrous striker, has been fabulous for us over many, many years at the club, one of the best players we've ever had at the team. However, for the past 2 seasons, he's been refusing to sign a new contract because every time we try to offer him one, he says, I don't want to sign a new contract because of the interest in me elsewhere. And at no point has the wanted symbol gone away and allowed us to sign him onto a new contract. And we were just hoping that it would eventually drip down and eventually we could get him on a new deal. He tried to explore his options several times and we talked him off the ledge on those, but we never got an opportunity window in the last 2.5 seasons to actually offer him a new contract, unfortunately. And so we'd almost resigned ourselves to losing him completely for free, and that is the worst thing that could possibly happen. So with about 2 weeks left until the January transfer opened, around about sort of late December kind of time, I decided just to put him on the market and see if anyone was stupid enough, honestly, to bid on him now to get him a bit early rather than us losing him for free. And then a bidding war ensued. A bidding war which ended up with him moving to PSG for £45 million 2 weeks before they could have offered him pre-contract terms and signed him on a permanent in the summer. Now, admittedly, by doing that, they would have, of course, risked losing out on him to someone else potentially, and they would have had to wait longer. So essentially, they were paying us £45 million to get him 6 months early, and I couldn't believe it. We made out like bandits with that £45 million. And just keep that number of 45 to 50 million in your head with relation to PSG, because this money is going to come in very handy with what I'm about to show you. Now to the ins. Then we actually dropped quite big money on Jiří Švída, a Czech Republic international goalkeeper, and he is the starting Czech keeper now for £11 million from Sparta Prague. But you know what? He's actually started 10 games so far for us this season in the league as a backup goalkeeper, and has actually flourished by being, just a backup here. I couldn't believe how good he's actually been. Next, a couple of the free transfers that we're hoping to bring in and flip into next year. First up, 31-year-old Joe Ogley. He's one I'm definitely going to try to move on this year. If we could get £10 million for him, I'd be very, very happy. Another one was Gary White, although he's really not about that. He's going to loan to Girmont. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get him back out on loan next season there, particularly as he hasn't played. I think a little spell in the second division would be really good for him, but on a free transfer, like, he actually has really nice attributes for the role, even if he doesn't have the ceiling. Then we have Wilson Enriquez, who was the top scorer for Red Bull Salzburg, I think in the Champions League in the previous season. Again, we picked him up on a free transfer. I'm hoping to move him on for around about 15 million in this summer as well, just to keep that money flowing in, particularly with FFP being a bit dodgy at the moment. And the last freebie was Bakary Diop from PSG. There's that name again, who we picked up on a free transfer. Didn't play a lot for us in the first half of the season, so we decided to loan him to Porto, and this is the key thing. They can buy him off of us at the end of this loan for £28 million. And if we make 28 million in one season on this chap, then my lordy lord, we're going to have even more money to play with in this transfer window, which is what we're doing over on stream right now. It's transfer window goodness. 4.6 million here on Jan Elshik, who again, really solid potential, hopefully can go quite far. Then quite a big outlay of £7 million on Hicham Tazi here from Raja Casablanca. But again, I just really liked his attributes. He's a Moroccan international. I think he's actually a really, really good player, and hopefully a loan would be good for him. But now it's time to talk about PSG again. So one of the other reasons we were very happy to sell Castillo to PSG for that £45 million is because we'd spent essentially that same amount of money pillaging their youth players in the prior window. Let me show you the players we picked up. The first one is Maurice Magnier, a French, surely one day French international centre-back that one day will be the long-term successor to Miggy Montiel. That's my theory with him. Now, it says £30 million. It's actually 10 with 20 structured over several years. So we're actually in like £45 million of transfer debt. Bear that in mind. But it was only about 10 up front. And the fact that they went for it was actually kind of marvellous. And so I'd already signed this guy up, and I showed him to chat, and chat went, well, have they got any more players like that we could potentially try and poach? Well, we did exactly that. As next up was Edu Fuba, a US international that came through at PSG. I believe he actually played for a Chicago team before then where he was poached. Now his is 25 million, but again, it's a lot of it is structured. And we tested something out with him, which I didn't even know was possible. So a lot of you will know that you can structure things over several years with the clauses. And I'm sure a lot of you also will know that you can stack those clauses one on top of the other. I'll show you an example in a minute when I talk about what actually happened. But we found a way to stack clauses that shouldn't really be stackable at all to essentially be able to pay for a player over 9.5 years, which is far too long. And obviously it's not something we're actually going to do going forward. We just wanted to see if it was even possible in the game, because I think it's a little bit dodgy. But then, hey, you know what? It exists. I'll show you how to do it in a minute in case you're interested. And the last player we poached from PSG was Arthur Etienne. 20 million. And this was just a straight up 10 up front, 10 in the back. I couldn't believe they let us have him for 20 million. He's absolutely outrageous. So 3 potential stars in the future have joined us for essentially the same amount of money up front as they paid us for Castillo, who they could have had on a free. Also dropped £8 million on Asael Yaramilo as well. A solid Mexican right back, but maybe lacking a little bit in certain technical areas. Great mentals, great physicals, worth a lot of money. Oh yeah, and we also spent a lot of money on this chap here. This is Dylan Chambers. We spent £35 million. We couldn't believe there was a player of this kind of quality playing for Celtic. And he was actually 5 stars at the time when we found him randomly. He's got England caps. We wanted to snipe him before Manchester City got there. The plan with him is to bump up that value and try and sell him to an English side for huge money. Basically, that's the real plan. But the fact is, he's done okay for us this season. 3 goals, 5 assists, solid performer for us as a backup player. Obviously, couldn't be registered in the Champions League, but still, I think he's a good player. We just massively overpaid for him, but I feel like we'll definitely get our money back and more on him. And the last player is genuinely the bargain of the season. This is Idriss Boudiaf, a Belgian goalkeeper. He's a Belgian under-21 international. He's 18 years old, and we picked him up from Dienza for £1.3 million. We could not believe our eyes when we randomly saw this dude was playing for a team in the Belgian second division. He's absolutely outrageous. Now, the balanced personality could let him down a little bit potentially, but I think there's a future star Belgian international goalkeeper in him. So, about that situation with the structuring clauses, I'll show you how it works now as an example, in case you want to do this in your save, because at the end of the day, FM's a single player game. If you're having fun, you're playing it right. This is just a random guy from one of our scout reports. So, I'm sure you'll all be aware of when you go into here, you can obviously suggest a fee. I'm just going to suggest a really low one so they counter. I'm sure you'll know that you can do installments of 12 monthly, and that will now pay for it over the following 3 seasons. However, I'm sure a lot of you are also aware that you can then add a supplementary installment on top of that of 2 more years, and then 1 more year. So you're essentially paying for him over 7 seasons when you structure this all in. However, we wanted to test something, and it turns out you can actually do it even longer than that. So what you do, the maximum way to set this up would be to remove these two, keep your first one at 3 years, then go into installments and 6 months, and then six monthly installments. So that adds 3 years, followed by another 3 years. But then you can add 5 6-monthly installments, which now, as you can see, takes it. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I feel like this might be something I need to look into, but just so you're aware, you can actually do that. We did it with one of those 2 PSG players to see if it would work, but yeah, it's not something I want to use going forward. Point being, it is possible. That concludes all the transfer stuff. Now, tactics this year have been absolutely rock solid. We have not touched the tactics. We've been sticking with the same system throughout, just to maintain that kind of consistency with it. No silly bollocks with the tactical incubator stuff this year. We want to maintain that consistency, which is why in the league this season, I think we've been extremely consistent. 88 points, champions again, as you would imagine. Haladash in there as well with, I mean, they were 16 points clear of third. They really are comfortably the second best side in the league. Pushkas, though, with their Tycoon, had a woeful year. I think they won one of their first 17 matches, and as a result, they are dead relegated. Absolutely horrible season from them. Second tier, though, kind of interesting, actually, with Zalagaseg coming up, finally, Cock-Wriggling leading the line with 39 goals, but also Spartacus finally up into the top flight after circling that reversal of a drain or whatever for several years. They've finally done enough to get promoted to the top flight. Only 74 points in a 38 game season, but there you go, they're up, and that's the first time I think that the 2 relegated sides haven't come back up in a while. That's all the admin and stuff out of the way. It is now time to talk about Europe, and that's where the bulk of our discussions today are going to exist. So let's jump straight in. Of course, we were straight into the Champions League group stage and had high hopes for this year after losing in the Champions League final last season, because it has just occurred to me I forgot to talk about the Champions League final last season. Sadly, it just was not our day. We took the lead early on through Bobby Tree. Aaron Jadot equalised almost immediately afterwards before David Helm's goal in the 89th minute sunk us, and we lost the Champions League. 2 wins and 2 defeats in Champions League finals so far, but disappointing for that to happen. And of course, there was also another final going on between Debrecen and Hertha Berlin, and yet again, a Hungarian side has ballsed it up. That was the 5th consecutive Conference League final that a Hungarian side has been in and lost. Yeah, when are a Hungarian side ever going to win a Conference League? It genuinely feels like it's cursed at this point. But yeah, that catches up with what happened last season. Let's jump into this season now, shall we? Because things are about to take a turn for the what? We started off very, very strong. An early goal conceded to Manchester United's Hossier, but Ingram and Bobby Tree turned it around, and a really good victory over United is exactly what we wanted to see here. Sadly, that was then followed by this nonsense. Brandon Silva decided to get sent off after 8 minutes. Fernando then gave Porto the lead with their first shot of the match. We did batter them, like 22 shots, 12 on target, loads of XG, loads of chance creation, and it seems like us having 10 men prevented our strikers from scoring goals. But yeah, really, really disappointed to lose at home to Porto there. Just should not have happened, but it is what it is, right? Very much took our anger out on Crvena Zvezda in the next game, as in the second half, we hit 7 goals past them. Bobby scored 4, Carpenu and Darlow and Villom in there as well. Monstrous effort. But then the disappointment came back as Atletico took the lead through Sam Cresswell. Bobby and Ingram turned it around again before Rob McDonnell put them back level. I'd say it's probably a fair result, but I still think we probably should have won this game. Atletico are not that good. And then things got even worse. 2nd minute goal from Valia, where our goalkeeper kicks it straight into him, and then a really annoying penalty gave Liverpool a 2-0 victory. And our results against Liverpool are genuinely baffling to me. We cannot seem to lose a game like normally against Liverpool. It's always with like goalkeeper kicks the ball into an opposition striker's face, or you give away a penalty for no reason in the corner of the penalty. It's just the stupidest things that always seem to happen against Liverpool, and this season was no different. And that was already 2 defeats and a draw. But then we did at least travel away to pot 2, crazily, Braga. Patrice and Castillo gave us the lead. Serrano got on back, but it was a good win, back on the winning ways. But then a very cushy home win against Shakhtar, Carpenu with a brace, Vojislav Milovanovic and Brandon Silva grabbing the goals. I'll explain the big Manovic thing a bit later. And then against Valencia, it was a very similar story. Bobby Tree, Villom, Velázquez and Brandon Silva getting the goals in back-to-back 4-0 victories. And all of that, remarkably, managed to earn us 8th spot with only 16 points, which is usually way less than you need to get top 8. You want at least 17 or 18 points usually to get top 8, and we got it with 16. Really happy with that, because as you can see, it wasn't the best season from us, and there was a lot more work to be done. You'll also note, of course, that no other Hungarian sides in there. Haladash were the team that could have been, but they got knocked out in the playoff round and went into the Europa League. But that was fine by me, because we had 2 sides in the Europa League and 2 in the Conference League, and they were good teams. We felt there was a real chance for us this season. So in the knockouts, we obviously bypassed a round and then were drawn against Bayern Munich. We got ourselves a 1-1 draw in Munich with Milovanovic grabbing a goal before Nico Christoph got the equaliser. We were fairly content with that, particularly as at home we hit them hard. Patrice, Bobby and Michal gave us a 3-0 lead inside 10 minutes before Patrice added a second goal of the match, 5-1 on aggregate, through to the quarterfinals where we would face Chelsea, a tough opponent. And what a first leg it was. 6-3. Thankfully, it's a 3-goal victory, but my God, it was all over the spot. The fact that Chelsea scored 2 in as many minutes, it was 1-0 to us, 2-1 to them. I think it then went 5-2 to us at one point, then 5-3, then 6-3. The game was all over the place, but Bobby Tree with yet another hat-trick, securing himself as one of the best strikers in the world at the moment, and a really good chance for us to go through. What followed then was a relatively boring 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge. Brandon Silva gave us the lead, Hartle with the equaliser. Bobby Tree was sent off after 50 minutes. There is zero reason why this would have happened. He just randomly 2-foots a midfielder from behind in the middle of the pitch when we're already like 4 goals up on aggregate at this point. Some of the red cards are mental. And even worse than that is that means that Bobby would be suspended for the first leg of our semi-final. He then got injured while he was suspended. So he was like double not available, which in a way, maybe it should double negative out. And actually he should be available. Who knows? Point being, he was going to potentially miss the entire semi-final, and up step Vojislav Milovanovic. He had to lead the line because Sem Van Dam was also injured. And boy, did he. The first leg against Barca at home in the semi, 5-0. A hat-trick from Milovanovic. He scores a header. He's 5'8" as well. He scores a lovely bending goal from the edge of the box, and then he dispossesses the defender for another one. A 10 out of 10 rating as well. Miggy with 2 goals to go on top of that too, and we've pretty much already cemented ourselves a place in another Champions League final. But what a performance from Vojislav Bigmanovic. We still made sure of things in the second leg, as Vojislav Milovanovic yet again with the winning goal this time at the Camp Nou to make it 6-1 on aggregate and sending us through to yet another Champions League final. Say 6-1, sorry, 6-0 on aggregate. What a result. And we would play Real Madrid in the Champions League final this time. The final would be played at Wembley. Remember, we've never won a Champions League final that wasn't played in Kiev. Now, as for the Bigmanovic thing, basically we were choosing the lineup for this and we noticed that he had big matches. And my brain sometimes works a bit funny, and I was talking about Milovanovic having big matches and I just randomly called him Bigmanovic. So now that's just his thing. And we only went and bloody done it. We won the Champions League. We beat Real Madrid by 2-1. Fantastic scenes. We weren't really that good in this one. Miggy gave us the lead from a corner after 33 minutes. And then it was kind of okay. We were coming back into the match a little bit. Then Real Madrid got, which we all believe is a dodgy penalty. The ball we don't think was in the box. Secondly, he wins the ball. So we have no idea how it was given as a penalty. Ridiculous. But then with 8 minutes to go, Mario Mihail, who had assisted the first goal for us as well, tapped in the winning goal for us to win us our 3rd Champions League of the save. And we really are looking like a team that could consistently get to these finals now. Reached the final last year, done it again this year, and this time put it over the line. And now we're reinventing the squad for the new generation. I think there's a lot more of these Champions Leagues to come, but we really just need the other Hungarian sides to step up, and that is where the rest of this story now takes us, as we had Kisvárda and Haladáš in the Europa League, and boom, Haladáš 6th spot, 5 wins out of 8 games, 17 points on the board. I'm not entirely sure how. No, they just did it on goal difference here because presumably. So 6th spot, they actually qualified in the top 8 there as well. Kisvárda come 15th with I think a win on the final day, which is just great news. Like, they beat Young Boys, HJK, Lazio 3-0. They won at Ellen Road. They were genuinely clapping people. And Kisvárda managed some good wins. It's interesting that all of their wins for both Hungarian sides here, all 9 of them, conceded no goals. It's really odd that seems to happen a lot. Sadly though, Kisvárda lost their first leg 2-0 away from home at Fenerbahce. Times were looking kind of bleak for them, and then they pulled off an absolute miracle. Kisvárda 3, Fenerbahce 2 to turn around a 2-0 deficit in Europe is insanely hard, particularly when they did it so late as well. Souza and then 2 from Owono, including an 85th minute penalty, gave them a pathway through to the round of 16, where they would of course be joined by Haladáš. And then things just got better. Kisvárda with a 0-0 draw at home of Real Sociedad. We saw them draw Real Sociedad and just figured, okay, fine. If they get anything in the home leg, it's probably good for coefficient points. And look at Haladáš, 4-0 win away at Sturm Graz, really just killing it. And then things got weird. Kisvárda with Gopane 1-0 in San Sebastian knocked Real Sociedad out Real Sociedad out of the Europa League, and Haladáš, despite getting a 1-1 draw, were through to the quarterfinals as well, which was genuinely astonishing to have 2 teams in the Europa quarters. Kisvárda would play against Stade Rennais, and Haladáš would face off against Hertha Berlin, of course the winners of the Conference League last year against Debrecen, out for a little bit of revenge, and the first legs went pretty damn well. Kisvárda getting a 2-2 draw in France against Stade Rennais is a very, very good result. Haladáš with a 3-2 home victory, obviously we love a 3-2, gave us pause for thought about what they might do in the second leg because, you know, we're often a lot stronger at home in Europe, a lot of Hungarian sides. That's just how it goes. But the key thing is, we knew that if they both went through, they would face each other in the semi-final, and we would be guaranteed a Hungarian side in the final of the Europa League, which has never happened in any of my other Building a Nation saves, to have another side get to the Europa League final. Well, that's exactly what bloody happened. Kisvárda with a 2-1 victory against Stade Rennais and a 2-2 draw for Haladáš, 5-4 in aggregate, and they would face off against each other in the semi-finals, when Haladáš and, of course, perennial Europa League specialist Sevilla would face off in the other semi. Did I say say Haladash, I meant Lazio and Sevilla. Haladash won the first leg 1-0, Sevilla 1-0 as well. The second leg, things took a turn, and, well, Lazio beat them 3-2, went to the final, and Haladash would join them in there. They are the stronger of the two sides, definitely, but what I would say is Kuzvada battered them in this game, were very unlucky not to win. So Haladash would face Lazio in the Europa League final, a team that they had beaten 3-0 in the league phase. Madness. And then this happened. Haladash 2, Lazio 0. Haladash are champions of the Europa League. The first time ever that in one of these saves I've had a team win the Europa League. Madness, and they deserved it too. Zivkovic gave them the lead early. Kote Yalilu, another of their heroes, put another one in there. Bove was sent off for a former Roma player, Eduardo Bove, was sent off for two-footing a Lazio player at 37 years old. He's still putting it about. Could have cost them there, but it didn't. They just shut up shop, saw it out, and won a European trophy, which was just madness. So very happy on the coefficients there. Now we turn our attention to the Conference League, where we had Ferencvaros and Újpest. And boy, oh boy, did this go well. Ferencvaros 6 for 6. 6 wins out of 6. The only side to win all of their matches in the Europa Conference League this season. And Újpest in 5th spot as well, with 4 wins out of 6. They were killing it in this competition. And this is what we wanted from this season. Teams that are way better than this, dropping into it and getting loads and loads of points for us. It's exactly what we wanted. They were both through. They both got to skip around all the bonus points. Lovely old job. Even better news was that they both got absolutely brilliant draws against Lech Poznan and Bodø Glimt, who of course came 24th and only just scraped through. Újpest had a very easy task. A 1-1 draw away in Norway for them, up in the Great White North, so obviously a little bit of a difficult challenge up there, as Ferencvaros also got a draw away at Lech Poznan. A little bit of worry started to creep in. Worries which were then massively confirmed by Újpest as they went out to the 24th seed. It should have been the easiest draw. Bodø won 1 game in the league phase, and they've somehow knocked out Újpest. We were very, very annoyed. But Ferencvaros at least snuck through to the next round against, well, I can't remember who they got, but Lech Poznan 2-0. Good stuff. They then faced off against Udinese, but a 1-1 draw at home put them in an absolute muddy position, as Bodø then went and beat Spurs 1-0. What were they doing? It's in great stuff. But then in the second leg, Ferencvaros, through Mohamed, the big centre-back, got a 1-0 victory and pushed their way through to the semi-final of the Conference League. Bodø sadly did go out at the Spurs stadium. But Ferencvaros would face off against Antwerp of Belgium in the semi-final, a team that we thought would be beatable, and boy did it prove that way. Ferencvaros 2, Antwerp 1, Durin and Fabrizio with the goals. Canahan sent off in the 16th minute as well, so they did all that with 10 men, which was magnificent. Spurs won up from the first leg. They were 90 minutes away from making it 3 teams in finals, and of course they went and bloody done it. Durin with the winning goal. Felipe Novak, who used to play for both Ferencvaros and us, actually scored the goal for Antwerp in that game too. Spurs sneaked through despite getting a red card, so it would be Ferencvaros Spurs in the Conference League final. Sadly, Spurs were just too good for them, sadly. Marlon Caprice scored a brilliant strike in the early stages of this game, and Ferencvaros just could not get their act together. They kept getting into good positions and wasting their chances. It just really wasn't great for them, and unfortunately, that now makes it 6 times Hungarian sides have now lost the Conference League final. Surely, eventually, statistically, they're going to win one, just by pure luck at some point. But no, it has not happened yet, and now it feels like Hungary really are on it. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, so presumably that means you earned quite a lot of coefficient points, right? Yes, we did. Boom. 25.9 coefficient points this season. We nearly doubled the year that we were losing, to give you an idea, from 7th spot. What a year. We beat England by 1.7 points. We comfortably crushed England this year in the coefficients. But that isn't even the coolest part. Coolest part is that one season has taken us from 7th in the rankings to 2nd in the rankings in 1 year. I can't believe it. And not even that. We're not even close. We're like 1.3 ahead of Spain, and I think are still going to gain on them next year as well. Actually, we're kind of not as it goes, but I still think we can have a massively good season next year, and we're still going to gain points on a lot of the teams below us, even at this stage, which is absolutely outrageous over the next couple of years, how much of a gap we could potentially stretch over everybody else and potentially start reeling in England. It's crazy to say it, but it might actually be possible. That's enough of that and that brilliance. Now to the youth intake. So this youth intake was a bit of a weird one for us. Really, really weird. So you can see it was actually a 1-star youth intake yet again. However, we got a player with 4-star potential in it, which is not bad. This is Bona Ola, who, do you know what? He's not bad, really. When you think about the level that we're actually at, he's not a bad player by any means. He's never going to play for our team, but he's definitely got Hungarian top flight potential at some point once he starts to develop. Team stats wise, it's all been about Bobby this season. Obviously, that injury at the end of the season cost him dearly. Didn't play in any of the last few matches. He came off the bench in the Champions League final, but wasn't really that impactful. 41 goals. He got 42 last season. Still a fantastic year. It's been all about him. There's really been no other ones contributed. But Mihal, though, coming back from his loan from Újpest, he didn't want to go back, so we just put him in our first team. 12 goals this year, 11 for Van Dam, who's had a few injury issues this year as well. Bigmanovic in there with 11 as well. Ingram with another 11 and 14 season. What a year. And also Silva continues to amaze me. 18 assists, 11 goals. Nunez with 10 off of 5 XG, which is fantastic. Carpenu with 8. Sogos, another like a double-digit assist season for Andreas Sogos. He's wanted by big sides this season, and I can see why, but he is a worldie. I can't believe we paid nothing for him. As for the loans, we're at negative 123 at the moment, which relates as 133 loans out. Obviously, our strategy has changed slightly at the moment. We're obviously looking for more quality rather than just trying to dump out as many players as we can, but we are still trying to make sure that we bring in some fodder that can go to some of the lower sides to really keep them improving as well. Cock Ringerling, for the second year in a row, is the top scorer out on loan, 42 goals, and if you just joined us, that is his real name. It's not a nickname. That is his actual name. Bohats as well with 31 for Kijvada was superb. Živkovic bangs another 27 for Haladash. He's just a worldie. It's also worth noting as well that Jose Carlos just got a Brazil call up for Honvéd, who are playing in the second division. He just got a cap for Brazil whilst playing in the Hungarian second division. That should tell you everything about the quality that he might possess. Just to sort of catch you up on Jose Carlos, now he's getting on right now. That's kind of mad. Now, as for the finances, we've got 250 million in the bank. Everything is looking cushy. We gained 50 million. I think that's actually technically this season. Like, we're into the new season in some things in terms of finances, but last year we still gained 53 million pounds in profit. Everything is looking extremely, extremely nice. Ignore the fair play stuff down here at the moment. I think that'll actually be fine. It's just because there's this weird limbo period where your finances suddenly drop at the start of the year before everything starts happening, and I think this will actually be okay. We were always trying to make sure that if we get a load of money, we spend it in the same season to avoid the issues we've had in the past. So, if you've enjoyed this video, join us over on stream. We'll be spending our £50 million transfer budget, and it will probably be a lot bigger soon, though, as I intend to flip a lot of players. So, yeah, join us over there for that. If you've enjoyed the video, drop a like. Subscribe if you're new. Loads of videos coming up, of course, in the usual sort of style, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.